working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles and you're watching ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila and Cambodia. Hello, Crystal.
Hello, Alma. I'm Crystal Ann Ballesteros, bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines. President Duterte on Wednesday expressed gratitude to China's timely acts of helping the Philippines recover from the effects of COVID-19 pandemic.
The Myanmar junta has hit deposed civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi with corruption charges over claims she accepted illegal payments of gold and more than $500,000 in cash, stated media reported Thursday.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP, and the United Nations and its other bodies and representatives signed a strategic plan to protect children in armed conflict.
And the traditional food of Indonesia and Cambodia from our EBC viewers.
First, here in the country, President Duterte on Wednesday expressed gratitude to China's timely acts of helping the Philippines recover from the effects of the coronavirus pandemic. In a message relayed to Chinese President Xi Jinping, President Duterte said the Philippines deeply values its friendship with China that continues to prosper 46 years after the establishment of the two countries' diplomatic relations on June 9, 1975. In the face of the challenges of a global pandemic, China's timely acts of solidarity and assistance have helped the Philippines take crucial steps towards healing and economic recovery, the President told President Xi Jinping as the two nations celebrate the 46th anniversary of their diplomatic relations. The two countries' ties have further improved under President Duterte's leadership, and to help the Philippines fight COVID-19, China has donated 1 million doses of coronavirus vaccines developed by Sinovac Biotech. China has also donated 1,000 vials of Sinopharm vaccine, in addition to 10,000 vials expected to be donated to the Presidential Security Group. President Duterte said it's evident that over the past 4 decades, Manila and Beijing ties have grown and deepened through concrete and purposive cooperation. He said Philippines-China economic ties are, of course, the dynamic force that will continue to drive the bilateral relations forward. The president also expressed confidence that his administration's ambitious Build infrastructure program, which complements China's Belt and Road Initiative, will reap long-term benefits for the peoples.
The Philippines and China celebrated 46 years of bilateral ties on Wednesday, with Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. touting the unbreakable ties between the Filipino and Chinese people. In a message during a virtual conference hosted by the Federation of Filipino-Chinese Chambers of Commerce, Industry, and Corporation, Locsin underscored that there are highs and lows in the two nations' relations, but still, through it all, we come through. I am confident that the abiding trust and goodwill of our countries, nurtured through the years, will bear much fruit in the years ahead, he said. As in the old days, when we broke through barriers one after another in language, culture, and beliefs, I have faith that we will once again overcome our differences. That faith has its deep foundations down to the bone of shared blood and life stories, he added. Chinese State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi, meanwhile, vowed to work with Locsin to fully implement the consensus reached between the two leaders. particularly on pandemic response. Chinese Ambassador Wang Xilian, on the other hand, stressed that even the closest of friends have differences and that the South China Sea issue is neither the keynote nor the sum total of our bilateral relations. The two sides should by no means allow this single dispute to derail the overall relations. Under the guidance of our two leaders, China and the Philippines have been dedicated to managing differences through friendly dialogues and consultations, he said. A bilateral consultation mechanism or BCM has been established between the two governments as a way to enhance mutual trust and exchange views on a wide range of issues, including the sea road.
In a related news, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, and China have agreed to exercise restraint in the disputed South China Sea and to avoid activities that would provoke tensions in the region. The commitment was made during the special ASEAN-China Foreign Ministers meeting in Chongqing, China on June 7. According to the joint statement of Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. and Chinese State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi, who co-chaired the meeting, both ASEAN and China will, quote, enhance and promote maritime security, uphold the freedom of navigation in and overflight above the South China Sea, and exercise self-restraint in the conduct of activities that would complicate or escalate disputes and affect peace and stability. Both parties also agreed to pursue peaceful resolution of disputes in accordance with international law, including the 1982 UNCLOS. Several littoral states, including China, the Philippines, Brunei, Vietnam, and Malaysia, have overlapping claims in the South China Sea. In May, the Philippines protested the, quote, incessant deployment, prolonged presence, and illegal activities of Chinese maritime assets and fishing vessels in the vicinity of the Pagasa Islands, demanding that China withdraw these vessels through a note verbal.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP, and the United Nations, or UN, and its other bodies and representatives signed a strategic plan to protect children in armed conflict. AFP Chief of Staff General Cirilito Sobihana, UN Resident Coordinator and Co-Chair of UN Country Task Force on Monitoring and Reporting, Gustavo Gonzalez, and United Nations Children's Fund, or UNICEF, representative to the Philippines Oyunsay Can Dendevnorov, signed the plan in a ceremony at the AFP headquarters in Camp Aguinaldo, Quezon City on Wednesday afternoon. The strategic plan to prevent and respond to grave child rights violations in situation of armed conflict contains undertakings, commitments, benchmarks, and activities for the AFP to perform and fully comply with its obligations under international human rights law and international humanitarian law. With the plan, Sobihana said the AFP is now committed to strengthening the protection of children in situations of armed conflict and prevent and respond to grave child rights violations and other prohibited acts contained in the UN Security Resolution 1612 and Republic Act 11188. The UN, through the Philippine CTFMR, co-chaired by the UN Resident Coordinator and UNICEF representative, and its technical working groups shall facilitate regular consultations with the AFP through its AFP Center for Law of Armed Conflict.
In a related news, the number of children in child labor has risen to 160 million worldwide, an increase of 8.4 million children in the last 4 years, with millions more at risk due to the impacts of COVID-19, according to a new report by the International Labor Organization and UNICEF. Let's listen in.
We are losing ground in the fight to end child labor. Even before the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw the first increase in 2 decades. 8.4 million more children engaged in child labor since 2016, and now under COVID-19, an additional 9 million children are at risk of being pushed into child labor by the end of next year. They are affected by school closures, lockdowns, lost parental jobs and income, a lack of social safety nets. Families are desperate, and they're turning to child labor as a last resort. We must not accept this. We urge countries to expand income support measures like child benefits to get children back into school where they belong, and to invest in programs that prevent and protect them from being exploited. It's time to get back on track.
The danger is that with the pandemic and everything it's done to the world of work, and we know what it's done. It's destroyed a lot of jobs, it's reduced labour income, and it's thrown a lot of people into poverty and extreme vulnerability. We estimate that the pandemic has put 108 million people and their families into working poverty. Well, in those circumstances, the danger is that people have resort to child labour almost as a survival strategy. And our estimations show that unless we act to stop it, we could see a further increase in until the end of 2022, of some 9 million in child labour. This would take us further in the wrong direction. But it's not inevitable. If we do the right things, if we invest in the fight against child labour, invest in social protection and income support, we can stop that from happening and get back on track to where we want to get to.
To reverse the upward trend, ILO and UNICEF are calling for adequate social protection, including universal child benefits, increased spending on quality education, and getting all children back into school, including those forced out before COVID-19, and investment in child protection systems, rural public services, and livelihoods. As part of the International Year for the Elimination of Child Labor, the Global Partnership Alliance, 87 of which UNICEF and ILO are partners, is encouraging member states, regional and international organizations, and others to redouble their efforts in the global fight against child labor by making concrete action pledges. Beginning tomorrow, the ILO and UNICEF chiefs will join other prominent speakers and youth advocates at a high-level event at the International Labor Conference during a week of action, discussing the new global estimates and roadmap ahead.
A new UN report warns that global progress against child labor has stalled for the first time since the last 2 decades. The COVID-19 crisis is likely to push millions more children into child labor unless urgent mitigation measures are taken. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, or FAO, is dedicated to eliminating child labor in agriculture. In Cambodia, FAO is supporting fisheries communities to better understand the benefits of reducing child labor and improving children's access to affordable and quality education.
From 15 to 17 years old, the law allows children to work. But there are two different categories. Either it's child labor because the working conditions are not safe. Either it is a decent, safe employment when children from 15 to 17 years old are provided with good care and good conditions without hazards.
15ទៅ10ឆ្នាំមុនហ្នឹងការប្រើប្រាស់កម្លាំងពលកម្មកុមារនៅក្នុងសហគមន៍ហ្នឹងគឺមានច្រើនចាទី1គឺគាត់តែងតែនាំកូនរបស់គាត់ហ្នឹងទៅនេសាទជាមួយគាត់ហើយទី2គឺគាត់ឲ្យកូនរបស់គាត់ហ្នឹងជួយចាជាកម្លាំងនឹងទៅស៊ីឈ្នួលគេដើម្បីជួយបន្ថែមប្រាក់ចំណូលរបស់គាត់នៅក្នុងគ្រួសារ
One of the main objectives for us to address child labor in the fisheries sector is the awareness raising, and especially to the fisher family, both parents and children.
នាងខ្ញុំខិតខំប្រឹងប្រែងរាល់ថ្ងៃដើម្បីចង់ក្លាយជាគ្រូបង្រៀនម្នាក់នៅក្នុងភូមិ ព្រោះរាល់ថ្ងៃខ្វះខាតនៅគ្រូបើសិនជាមានគ្រូម្នាក់នៅក្នុងភូមិងាយស្រួលក្នុងការអប់រំក្មេងៗនៅក្នុងភូមិឲ្យមានចំណេះដឹង
Fisheries are critically important for Cambodia's aquatic ecosystems and for the livelihoods and nutrition of the rural population. The Tonle Sap is Southeast Asia's largest lake and the world's most productive inland fishery. But many families experience extreme poverty and have to use their children as workforce to survive. Youth aged from 15 to 17 who are above the legal working age often engage in hazardous work. Child labor is defined as work that is inappropriate for a child's age, affects children's education, or is likely to harm their health, safety, or morals. Child labor not only continues the cycle of poverty for the children involved, but also for their families and communities. Without education, these girls and boys are likely to remain poor, perpetuating their state of poverty and ultimately undermining efforts to reach sustainable food security and end hunger. FAO has been working with the Cambodian government and fisheries stakeholders to integrate child labor prevention into existing policies, legal frameworks, and capacity building programs.
And staying in Cambodia, toxic home-brewed rice wine has killed more than 30 villagers in 3 separate incidents in less than a month, according to authorities. Now, 7 women died and nearly 100 people were hospitalized in the latest poisoning after drinking hooch contaminated with up to 15% methanol. Now, this followed 14 deaths and 10 deaths at 2 separate funerals in May. In all 3 incidents, the home-brewed rice wine containing methanol, which, unlike ethanol, the usual form of alcohol found in drinks, is highly toxic and can cause blindness, even in very small doses. At least 15 rice wine brewers and sellers have been arrested, according to Cambodian police, while the health ministry has renewed calls for people to avoid drinking contaminated beverages. Cambodia is one of Asia's poorest countries, and health and safety standards are virtually non-existent outside major cities. Homemade rice wine is popular in rural areas at wedding parties, village festivals, and funerals as a cheap alternative to commercially produced drinks.
Factual.
We have to defeat the virus everywhere.
Timely information. Balanced, not only in the country, but also abroad.
I'm certain of one thing.
Interviews that people need to know. Watch Aguila Pilipinas. A 1-hour newscast of reports coming from regional hubs in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Know the important updates in Asia in ASEAN in Focus. Track the latest stories in the provinces in Aguila Provincia. Tune into Mata ng Aguila, the evening primetime news program of Net25. Balanced and objective, Mata ng Aguila covers national and international issues, tackles news on business, health, science, and technology, entertainment, sports and human interest features, and current events. And Eagle News International delivers the latest global reports, impartial, accessible, and up-to-date. It brings to fore EBC's rich international scope and access to valuable information streams.
Well, thank you to thank our help outdoor.
Catch these programs on Net25. You can also watch our news programs through eaglenews.ph and Eagle News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Welcome back to the program. The Myanmar junta has hit deposed civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi with corruption charges over claims she accepted illegal payments of gold and more than $500,000 in cash, state media reported Thursday. The 75-year-old Nobel laureate, who has been in custody since the coup, is facing a raft of wide-ranging criminal charges, including sedition and breaching a colonial-era secrecy law. The latest charges relate to allegations by the former Yangon region chief minister that Suu Kyi illegally accepted $600,000 in cash from him, along with around 11 kilograms of gold. The Anti-Corruption Commission found evidence that Suu Kyi had committed corruption using her rank, according to the Global New Light of Myanmar, a state-run newspaper. So she was charged under Anti-Corruption Law Section 55. She is also accused of abusing her authority when renting 2 areas of land for her charitable foundation. After weeks of legal wrangling, 2 of Suu Kyi's trials are due to start in earnest next week, hearing evidence from witnesses. In Nhai Pi Dao, the remote capital purpose-built by the previous military regime, her trial will start on Monday on charges of violating restrictions during last year's election campaign and possessing unlicensed walkie-talkies. A separate case is scheduled to start on June 15, where she is charged with sedition, alongside ousted President Win Myint and other senior member of her National League for Democracy, or NLD party.
In a related story, it was only when he boarded the plane that would fly him to Europe that Mirat Kayah though finally felt safe for the first time since Myanmar's military coup on February 1. Now, it had been an arduous few months for the 30-year-old journalist who quickly found himself on the military junta's wanted list for his reporting of its deadly crackdown on anti-coup protesters. He has also written widely on Rohingya issues and won AFP's 2017 Kate Webb Award for his outstanding coverage of the ethnic and religious conflicts in Myanmar. Let's take a look.
We're just like waiting for the doors knocking, actually. You know, if someone is coming to our house, you know, sometimes we heard that footsteps on the ladder. It's just like it's coming for me. So on March 11, those soldiers came to my streets and then searched for someone. But, you know, luckily I was not there. So my neighbor, my friends, the next door just take pictures of them, and then he sent me. And then, you know, he told me you should leave Yangon right now because, you know, they were searching for you. After I landed in Frankfurt, it's just like, okay, like the military cannot arrest me anymore. It's like that. But the feeling just faded out after I was arrested in the Frankfurt airport, actually. And then the German police told me that we will not deport you to your country. And then that moment I just relieved,
Okay.
The UN's Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in Myanmar has warned of mass deaths from starvation and disease in the wake of fighting between rebel groups and junta forces in the east of the coup-stricken country. The junta's brutal and indiscriminate attacks are threatening the lives of many thousands of men, women, and children in Kayah state, Tom Andrews said in a statement posted on Twitter Tuesday. Let me be blunt. Mass deaths from starvation, disease, and exposure on a scale we have not yet seen could occur in Kayah state absent immediate action. Fighting has flared in several communities, especially in townships that have seen a high death toll at the hands of police, and some locals have formed defense forces. Clashes have escalated in Kayah state near the Thai border in recent weeks. Locals have accused the military of firing artillery shells that have landed near villages, and the UN estimates around 100,000 people have been displaced. Diplomatic efforts to halt the bloodshed have been led by the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, of which Myanmar is a member, but the bloc is riven with infighting and has managed to put little pressure on the junta. An emergency summit in April produced a 5-point consensus statement that called for an immediate halt to violence and a visit to Myanmar by a special envoy. But the special envoy has yet to be appointed, and violence has continued across the country. China, which enjoys exceptional leverage over Myanmar, has also been unwilling to condemn the junta and has refused to label its power or grab a coup.
Back here in the country, Pagasa on Wednesday night said the southwest monsoon or habagat may cause flooding in Marikina. Take a look. In an advisory issued at 8:30 p.m., Pagasa said watercourses that may be affected include the upper and lower portions of Marikina rivers, Rodriguez, Antipolo, and San Mateo in Rizal, Quezon City, Marikina City, and Pasig City. Marikina River tributaries such as Nangka River, Marikina, San Mateo, Antipolo, and Mango River, which is Rodriguez, are also likely to be affected. People living in the mountain slopes and in the low-lying areas of the mentioned cities and the local disaster risk reduction and management councils concerned are advised to be alert for possible flash floods and landslides according to its advisory. Flooding is possible in some areas due to poor drainage systems, it added. Pagasa forecast the monsoon trough to bring scattered rain showers and thunderstorms over Luzon, the Visayas, Zamboanga Peninsula, Basilan, Sulu, and Tawi-Tawi. It will also cause isolated rain showers or thunderstorms over the rest of Mindanao, according to Pagasa. For Luzon and Visayas, the Weather Bureau said flash floods or landslides are likely due to scattered moderate to at times heavy rains. Over Mindanao, flash floods or landslides due to severe thunderstorms are also possible.
Vietnam has asked Australia to use part of the latter's 40 million Australian dollars aid to purchase Pfizer vaccine for adolescents aged from 12 to 18. The request was made by Vietnamese Minister of Health Nguyen Thanh Long at a working session with Australian Ambassador to Vietnam, Mo Bin Moody, on June 8. Nguyen also asked the Australian side to increase vaccine supply to Vietnam. The Australian government has actively deployed measures to provide more vaccines to Vietnam, said Moody, hoping that Australia could offer direct vaccine supply to the Southeast Asian country within the next 6 months. The same day, Nguyen had separate working sessions with French and Swiss ambassadors to Vietnam, during which both sides discussed on COVID-19 vaccine supply and technology transfer. Nguyen took the occasion to thank the three nations for supporting Vietnam in the COVID-19 fight, including their commitments to donate vaccines to the COVAX facility, through which Vietnam is a beneficiary country.
The Ministry of Health confirmed 60 new COVID cases on Wednesday evening, raising the national patient tally to 9,565. Now, the latest patients in the Philippines include 3 imported cases and 57 local infections recorded in, this is in Vietnam, recorded in Ho Chi Minh City, 20, Bac Giang 19, Bac Ninh 12, Hanoi 4, Lang Son 1, and the National Cancer Hospital 1. All of the domestic cases in Vietnam have been quarantined before testing positive for COVID-19, according to its ministry. The ministry also reported that 87 patients were discharged from hospitals, bringing the total recoveries to 3,636. The death toll stood at 55.
The Quezon City government will start vaccinating the A4 or Economic Frontliners priority list on Friday, June 11, 2021. Mayor Joy Belmonte said the city has 43,800 doses of Sinovac jabs for the first dose. Quote, "We start on Friday. The national government gave us 53,800 Sinovac today, Wednesday, 10,000 of them to replenish our second dose," Belmonte said in a text message to the Philippine News Agency. As in the other priority groups, registration is required via Easy Consult for the A4 group that includes private employees required to physically report to work, employees in government agencies, workers in the informal sector, self-employed who may be required to work outside their homes, and private household workers. Actual booking for the vaccination schedule may be done once the patient's COVID-19 electronic immunization registration form is approved. Schedules are limited and dependent on the supply.
The United States government has lowered its travel alert for the Philippines from level 4 to 3. In an advisory posted on June 8, the U.S. State Department advised Americans to still reconsider travel to the country due to high level of coronavirus disease or COVID-19. Under level 3, U.S. citizens are encouraged to get fully vaccinated before travel, while those unvaccinated travelers were told to avoid non-essential travel. Last April, Americans were advised against all travel to the Philippines after the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention raised to level 4, very high, its COVID-19 advisory for the country, the highest of its pandemic warnings. America's Do Not Travel Notice, meanwhile, remains in place in Marawi City and the Sulu Archipelago, including the southern Sulu Sea, due to crime, terrorism, civil unrest, and kidnapping. A reconsidered travel warning is also hoisted in other parts of Mindanao. The Philippine government, it said, maintains a state of emergency and greater police presence in the Cotabato City area and in the Maguindanao, North Cotabato, and Sultan Kudarat provinces, according to the State Department. It also added that terrorists and armed groups continue to conduct kidnappings, bombings, and other attacks, targeting U.S. citizens, foreigners, civilians, local government institutions, and security forces.
Over 4 million pesos was allocated to study the commuters' behavior when boarding and leaving public transport. as well as the airflow and aerosolization, and executive, the Philippine Council for Health Research and Development said. The study will describe how air flows as passengers board.
Malalayong lugar ang kanilang narating para maghanap buhay. Tulungan ang pamilyang iniwan sa sariling bayan. Yan ang ating mga overseas Filipino worker. Pero dahil sa di pangkaraniwang pangyayaring hatid ay krisis, may ilan sa kanilang nagpasyang umuwi. Pinagyaman ang sariling lupain, nagtayo ng negosyo na kasama sa puhunan ang sipag at tiyaga. Ang mga OFW, maraming sakripisyo, ninanais maging kapaki-pakinabang maging sa kanilang pagbabalik bansa. Sapagkat ang ating mga bagong bayani, Pilipino pa rin sa puso at damdamin.
Impormasyong mahalaga sa taong bayan. Patas na pagbabalita. Papakinggan ang magkabilang panig. Lilinawin ang mga issue at kaagad na ihahatid ng objektibo. Mata ng Agila. Tumadagit ng pinakasariwang pangyayari, hindi lamang sa loob ng bansa, kundi sa iba't ibang panig ng daigdig. Mula sa Eagle News teams at sa tulong ng makabagong teknolohiya, tiyak na makakalap kaagad ang katotohanan. Para sa mas matalas, malinaw at malalimang pagbabalita. Ito ang mas pinatalas na Mata ng Agila. Inihahatid ng veteranong broadcast journalist na si Eli Saludar. Kasama si Binibining Pilipinas Intercontinental 2019 Emma Tiglao. At pinangungunahan ng batikang mamamahayag ng bansa, Vic De Leon Lima. Mata ng Agila, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 6 hanggang alas 8 ng gabi, dito sa Net25.
And let's join our EBC correspondent, Crystal Ann Ballesteros, as she tries out Cambodia's street food. Take a look.
Hello, Saksabay. Join me today as we experience the authentic foods here in Cambodia.
Cambodian street food is not as famous as its counterpart, Thailand. The cuisine, in general, is overshadowed by its popular neighbors, Thailand and Vietnam. However, once you go deep into Cambodian cuisine, you will discover unique and amazing flavors. Snacking is a popular Cambodian pastime, particularly snacking on street food. You'll find different snacks available on Cambodia's streets at different times of the day. Delightful dishes usually cost no more than $1. The freshly pressed sugarcane juice in Cambodia is then poured over lots of ice and combined with a splash of lime, and it is absolutely refreshing and delicious. Numpang, or the typical Cambodian sandwich, is served with meaty ingredients such as pate, ham, or pork served with cucumber, carrots, chives, or onions. You will find Numpang street vendors with their carts outside of markets or near office buildings. They are easily identifiable with the baguettes exposed on the carts. Micha or locha is one of the most popular Cambodian street food. It is a stir-fried dish consisting of mee, which are noodles, with bean sprouts, Chinese broccoli, and chives. It is typically cooked with beef and topped with a fried egg. You can find the noodle vendors on the streets or at the markets in Phnom Penh.
That was so satisfying. Did you enjoy the authentic foods here in Cambodia? What's your favorite? I hope this video made you starving, but satisfied your cravings. Goodbye!
Let's go to Jakarta, where our EBC Bureau's December Paras tries the different flavors of traditional Indonesian food.
Food is one of the most enjoyable activities during travel. It offers an entertainment to visitors who are seeking for relaxation and excitement. Indonesia has thousands of local foods to offer, which makes it a remarkable tourism destination. Join me as I dine some of the traditional cuisine and experience the culinary heritage of the world's largest market.
Indonesia traditional recipes vary from region to region and exhibit many foreign influences. National dishes are representative of a culture as a whole, so if you'd like to experience Indonesian cuisine in broad strokes, then you should start with these 3 dishes. One of the most popular dish in Indonesian cuisine is satay. It is believed to have been developed by Javanese street food sellers who were trying to replicate Indian kebabs. Satay is typically made with small pieces of chicken, beef, pork, mutton, fish, or seafood. They're skewered on bamboo sticks and grilled over charcoal before being served with peanut sauce and ketchup manis, which is a thick, sweetened soy sauce often used in Indonesian cuisine. Satay is in every region of Indonesia and is equally popular at street food stalls and restaurants. It is incredibly delicious that it's one of the 3 Indonesian dishes that made it to CNN Travel's Reader's Ball on the world's 50 best dishes. The second traditional dish is nasi goreng, which literally means fried rice. It's made with shrimp paste, garlic, shallots, tamarind, chili, and ketchup manis, which gives nasi goreng its signature brown color. Aside from the basic ingredients, nasi goreng can be made of other ingredients like meat, seafood, egg, vegetables, and is best eaten with krupuk or traditional crackers. Like satay, nasi goreng made it to CNN Travel's readers list of the world's 50 best dishes. The final dish I sample today is rendang. Rendang is an important Indonesian cultural food that's often served at ceremonial gatherings like weddings and birthdays. The beef is slow-cooked for several hours in coconut milk and spices until it becomes tender. It is the Indonesian dish that made it number 1 to CNN Travels on the list of world's 50 best foods.
There are thousands of traditional Indonesian recipes. These 3 dishes is a mere snapshot of all that Indonesian food has to offer. So if you're interested to try rich and complex and intensely flavorful traditional Indonesian food, come and try out these dishes and have a wonderful taste of Indonesia. Reporting from Jakarta, Indonesia, this is December Paras. We live in interesting times.
Thanks, guys.
I hope I can visit Indonesia soon.
And Cambodia as well. We hope we can visit you there.
Yeah, soon.
After the pandemic and try out all those different flavors and traditional food. Thank you very much.
And that's the latest news in the Southeast Asian region. Thank you for joining us today here in ASEAN in Focus. This is Crystal Ann Ballesteros from your EBC Cambodia Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
We'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.